While American audiences presumably wait around for yet another unholy reincarnation of the popular Real Housewives show, undoubtedly called something like Real House Husbands of New Hampshire, across the pond we're not drinking tea and bowing to framed photographs of the Queen's corgis, UK audiences recently tuned in to watch a rabble of fame-hungry, constantly Instagramming singletons being forced to live together on an idyllic tropic island with the aim of coupling up, finding true love and winning a share of £100,000. No, this isn't a particularly on-the-nose dystopian episode of Black Mirror, it's ITV's smash hit reality TV show Love Island, which, short of going off the grid Castaway style and attempting to bury your head quite literally in the sand, it seems almost impossible to ignore. From cheaply made slogan t-shirts littering the floors of English equivalent of Walmarts everywhere, to customizable Love Island themed water bottles like some kind of unstoppable fake tan super virus, Love Island's influence continues to spread. From just a quick glance at the rows upon rows of unnaturally white teeth or the text painted on the villa's walls which tells the contestants to eat, sleep, crack on repeat, it would be easy to dismiss Love Island as just another harmless reality TV show. But on a closer inspection, however, the runaway success and undeniable cultural impact of Love Island could be argued to mirror the ugliness that can exist within society. So get ready to put all your eggs in one basket and start screaming loudly every time you receive a text message, because I'm Tom from Screen On Point and this is the nightmarish dystopia of Love Island. For anyone who's been lucky enough to somehow avoid the last 20 years of network television, reality TV is an arguably voyeuristic type of programming that depicts supposedly ordinary people and how they interact in their normal lives or in situations that have been manufactured to represent elements of everyday life that the viewer can easily relate to. Candid Camera, the American hidden camera show which first appeared on television way back in 1948, is thought to be the first example of reality TV.
I'd like to know whether girls would like to be in my class.
Candid Camera revolved around hidden cameras filming the unsuspecting general public or celebrity guests as they were pranked by the show. After the prank was revealed, the unwitting participants were told to smile, "You're on Candid Camera." Interestingly, in a move that could almost be seen as prophetic of the direction that reality TV would eventually go down, in 1970 the show's original creator Alan Funt would go on to write and direct an X-rated film version of Candid Camera, imaginatively titled "What Do You Say to a Naked Lady?" Shows like The Dating Game and The Newlyweds began to appear on ABC in the mid-1960s, ushering in a new subgenre of reality TV that focused primarily on people's love lives.
How many times in his life has your husband made whoopee? And how many of those times were with you?
And their success proved that the general public were fascinated with watching strangers' relationships. And 4 decades later, Love Island first appeared on our TV screens in the UK in 2005 as Celebrity Love Island. Since then, like a faceless corporation from any number of futuristic 80s sci-fis, it seems to have taken over the world, with spin-off shows in Australia, USA and Denmark of all places, to name a few. Although Love Island clearly owes a debt to shows like The Dating Game.
Number 1, when is a woman really most beautiful to you?
I believe it would be in the evening.
It could be argued that the 1999 Dutch show Big Brother is its greatest influence. With oppressive round-the-clock surveillance of its contestants, Big Brother represented a significant turning point in reality television where it became somewhat reminiscent of the iconic novel 1984 by George Orwell. It's no coincidence then that the term Big Brother is actually taken from the pages of 1984, and in the book, the character of Big Brother is the ruler of a totalitarian state which exists in a position of ultimate power over its subjects. Both Love Island and Big Brother seem to be constantly filming their participants, and with both shows' use of grainy night vision to reveal what the contestants get up to after dark, there is an uncomfortable level of intimacy on show that creates the feeling that we as the audience are voyeuristically watching something that maybe we shouldn't be. So with that said, Love Island can be interpreted as a postmodern take on reality TV. From the voiceover guy reminding us that they are cutting to stock footage of the moon to show the passage of time, to cheerily berating cameraman Steve if something is in the way of a shot.
Hey cameraman Steve, those flapping leaves bottom right are distracting. Can you pull them back please? This will be an important scene. Thank you.
Love Island repeatedly reminds the viewer that they are in fact not watching real events play out, but a heavily constructed reality. The constant self-referential nods to the conventions of the reality TV genre lend Love Island a surprising meta quality, which suggests that the show's creators are aware that the audience are no longer fooled by the concept of reality TV being an unedited reality, and are asking the audience to watch the show with a kind of detached sense of irony. What's interesting about this nudge nudge wink wink take on the format is that the show often makes the contestants themselves the butt of this joke. The show often calls into question how genuine the romantic relationships that develop on the show actually are, by reminding the viewer that there is a very real cash prize to be won by these contestants if they appear to be coupling up. What this suggests about where reality TV now exists within culture is that it seems to be playing a balancing act with wanting the audience to invest in the characters' romantic journeys on the show and simultaneously criticising the contestants' attempts to progress on the show.
What do you call a window cleaner? A ledge. Oh no, wait. That's not even the joke.
Never mind that bloody kiss, Curtis. When are you going to finish the window cleaner joke?
By recognising that money and fame are a direct consequence of appearing on the show and repeatedly referencing that fact, Love Island seems to want to have its cake and eat it by being self-aware enough to acknowledge that it's making these contestants famous, but also openly sneering at their efforts to become famous. This aligns the show's creators with the audience's ironic viewing of it, and by encouraging the audience to not take the events on screen too seriously, it behaves in a similar way to, say, a contestant on The Apprentice.
Nice looking group.
In that it covers its own back, avoiding any criticism that may be aimed at it if it was an accurate depiction of reality. As the American journalist James Walcott wrote in his Vanity Fair article, "I'm a culture critic, get me out of here," the viewer's passivity is kept intact, pampered and massaged, and force-fed chicken McNuggets of carefully edited snippets that permit him or her to sit in easy judgment and feel superior at watching familiar strangers make fools of themselves. Reality TV looks in only one direction: down. With enough contrived meet cutes to rival anything written by Richard Curtis, and constant scenes of the couples dancing in slow motion that wouldn't look out of place in a Wes Anderson film, for a show that revolves around dating, Love Island seems to present a pretty bleak depiction of modern relationships. When the male contestants are first introduced, they are brought in front of a line of female contestants who step forward if they have an instant physical attraction to them. Note that when they initially decide to couple up, the singletons know next to nothing about each other, and their judgment of who they will couple up with is entirely based on looks, and specifically how members of the opposite sex look in swimwear, which the camera work seems to almost creepily linger on. This can be illustrated by looking at Love Island UK Season 5 Episode 1. Lined up and commenting on the new islanders who appear before them, the camera work conveys the narrative of the scene by showing us medium close-ups. Interestingly, they repeatedly cut to a tracking wide shot known as a full shot, which shows off the full body profile of the contestants wearing heels and bikinis, instead of opting for a conventional over-the-shoulder shot to show the contestants interacting and the geography of the scene. We actually get an over-the-shoulder shot from much lower down the body, which conveys exactly the same information, but also is framed just low enough to show the audience what they've paid to see. Arses, they've paid to see arses. This approach taken towards the show's editing and camera work is probably more reminiscent of early works from the Farrelly brothers, and this can be illustrated further simply by looking at the contestants' introductory VTs in Australia Love Island Season 2 Episode 1.
Ooh, pack your bags, handsome.
The same can be said for when Vanessa is introduced too.
She's a stunner.
In classical mythology, Cupid is the Roman god of erotic love, attraction and desire, but is generally interpreted as being representative of romantic love, and thought to be a god which could create attraction between two people by shooting them with its arrow. With that in mind, the portrayal of the presenter as Cupid seems to be the show recognising that Love Island, and by extension the audience, has an omniscient, almost godlike control over these people's love lives. By overtly sexualizing sexualizing the contestants, it raises some troubling questions about what Love Island is saying about the concept of love, as being hit by Cupid's arrow enables the contestants to find love, but also strips away most of their clothes in the process too. With the earlier definition of reality TV as aiming to represent relatable everyday life, it can be read that the show believes that when it's portraying the contestants partnering up for shallow reasons, it's actually in turn representing how relationships work on the outside world.
I feel quite special being the first to be picked.
You actually look very good together. It's very Ken and Barbie.
Although it may be sacrilege to mention any of these great thinkers in the same sentence as Love Island, from Rene Descartes to Karl Marx, philosophers have long debated what defines the distinction between humans and animals. It's widely thought that our intelligence and sense of morality separates us from animals who exist on a more base level. Aristotle wrote what makes humans more sophisticated is that we are rational animals who live by art and reasoning. When the islanders enter the villa, there are strict rules in place, including no phones and absolutely no contact with the outside world. On the podcast Modern Wisdom, ex-Love Island contestant Chris Williamson describes the level of control that the show exerts over its participants when he says,
"And if you begin to talk about stuff from the outside world, common friends that you've got that aren't in the villa, they'll come over the tannoy and they'll tell you, 'Islanders, can you please stop talking about the outside world?'"
And so the podcast's co-host responds with,
"Like you thought that's thought police. Like that is
in every prison.
So Orwellian."
The evident oppression of freedom of speech on the show and the fact that the contestants are so isolated from the real world can be seen as creating an oppressive, almost prison-like environment. Chris goes on to describe that,
"You're always mic'd up. There'll be a sound guy that'll come in twice a day, morning and night, and change your batteries out. But the second you get up, even if you want to go to the bathroom, straight on, put it on, and they'll come over the tannoy. 'Chris, you haven't got your microphone on.' You will have someone listening to your channel on the mic almost 24 hours a day."
By stripping away the contestants' fundamental human right of privacy and displaying an Orwellian control over their day-to-day lives, the show seems to blur the line of what makes us different to animals here. And by placing singletons in a confined space similar to that of an animal's cage and encouraging us to gather around and watch them mate with each other, it could be argued that Love Island is displaying a belief that we are all in fact animalistic creatures with the goal of satisfying our base instincts. This could be the instinct to couple up or mate, or the instinct to assert dominance over others in a social group.
Boys, you look a little bit worried.
Interestingly, the contestants themselves sometimes adopt this animalistic language, with the UK Love Island Season 1's Jordan literally calling himself an alpha, a term often used to describe the highest ranking animal in a pack. Or if you're a Walking Dead fan, lead a group of survivors through the apocalypse. It could be argued that the audience are also asserting their social dominance by gaining a sense of superiority over watching the events of the show play out, almost like a nature documentary or visiting a sexually charged zoo. Casa Amor is a separate villa which has featured on all of the UK seasons of the show. It is normally introduced once the contestants appear to be relatively settled in comfortable relationships. Half the contestants are dropped off in Casa Amor and greeted by more gratingly presentable singles that you might find queuing up to audition on the next season of The Bachelor. The producers orchestrate a series of drinking games which seem to exist for the sole purpose of getting the coupled up contestants into compromising positions with the new Islanders. By looking at this scene from season 3 of the UK version of the show, we can see how photos are taken and carefully framed to make what might be something as innocent as a hug seem like something far more explicit. These photos are then sent out of context back to the original villa. These photographs then create a manufactured feeling of distrust within the couples and comes across as a cynical ploy to orchestrate some conflict to make for more interesting television. What is this world we're living in? What the use of Casa Amor as a plot device highlights is that the relationships are presented here to be fickle, as the slightest test created by the producers often results in contestants almost immediately cheating on their partners. One example of this is UK season 4's Josh, who cheats on his partner Georgia with newcomer Kaz quicker than you can say who cares about any of this. When asked about Casa Amor, ITV executive Angela Jane was quoted as saying, "We're trying to mirror real life here, and relationships in real life get tested, and that is entirely normal." If that is the case and Casa Amor is an accurate depiction of what she believes is normal in a relationship, it's difficult not to feel a bit sorry for Angela. I'm definitely going to lose sleep over this. This portrayal of relationships where no one fully trusts each other runs throughout the makeup of the whole show. This can be illustrated by the final scenes of a season, where once everyone's favourite couple has been crowned the winner, they are given an envelope and presented with a choice, not too dissimilar from Saw. One envelope contains nothing and the other envelope contains the winning money. The contestant who gets the envelope with the money inside is given the choice to either share it or take it all for themselves in a move similar to the popular daytime television show Golden Balls, which is essentially a show that can be won by manipulation and deceit alone.
There was no way everyone who knew me would just be disgusted if I stole.
Split or steal?
In this moment from Australia Love Island Season 1, the presenter says this.
The $50,000 is all yours. Choose money, and you can leave with all of it. And our best wishes. We're all for it. Grant probably won't like it, but we've all got you back.
By encouraging the contestant to take the money, the presenter appears to be calling into question the contestant's integrity right up until the end of the show. Cynically, Love Island here seems to be suggesting that when faced with the prospect of financial gain, it's against the norm for the individual to make the morally right choice, regardless of their relationship. This cynical outlook on the world is shared by Black Mirror Season 1 Episode 2, 15 Million Merits, which follows the romance of characters Bing and Abby as they attempt to make it in a dystopian sci-fi world. Bing tirelessly works to get enough merits to enter the show after Abby is drugged, tricked and exploited. When on stage, he holds a piece of broken glass to his throat, threatening to kill himself as he rants about the heartlessness of the society that they live in. Although conventionally this kind of romantic narrative would end with Bing saving the day and freeing Abby from her situation, the actual outcome is reminiscent of the bleak view Love Island appears to have of its contestants, as when Bing is faced with the prospect of turning his act of defiance into a lucrative advertisement, he chooses the money over helping Abby and tragically becomes a part of the system he had aimed to rebel against. Like Jim Carrey walking up the stairs and exiting his fake existence through a door at the end of The Truman Show, when the show comes to an end, the couples are thrust from an artificial reality into the real world. With tabloid newspapers seemingly following their every move and constant appearances on daytime TV chat shows like This Morning, the audience are suddenly expected to accept them as a real couple, which jars with the show's encouraged ironic viewing of them. The most popular contestants might get a short-lived spin-off show. One example of this is the UK Season 3 spin-off Straight Outta Love Island, which followed the bromance of Chris and Kem and their ill-judged attempt to make it in the music industry with a hip-hop single, Lil Bit Leave It. The brutal reality, however, is their 15 minutes of fame runs out pretty quickly as the viewing public move on to fixating on the singletons that are going to appear on the next series of Love Island. Suddenly, the once-loved contestants are no longer relevant, with the grim knowledge that two of the show's ex-UK contestants, Sophie Graydon and Mike Thalassitis, has since taken their own life from transitioning from the show into the real world. It's clear that Love Island has a duty of care over these people. But the sobering question is, as an audience voyeuristically watching their demise, do we also share some of that responsibility? In July 2001, an episode of the Twilight Zone style anthology series Night Visions was aired called A View from the Window. It tells the chilling tale of a window into another dimension that suddenly appears in the middle of nowhere. Through the window appears to be a beautiful landscape with a community living in a similar fashion to those that would have existed in the American prairies of the Wild West. Major Ben Darnell, played by Bill Pullman, is brought in to investigate the strange phenomenon, as conveniently he seems to be the only soldier in the show's universe who has a physics degree. As he tries to figure out a way to travel through the window and into the other dimension, he begins to fall in love with a woman living in the prairie. Ultimately, he discovers a way to get to the other side and jumps through the portal before shutting it off behind him, making nearly impossible for the army to follow. He approaches this woman that he falls in love with, and she opens her mouth to reveal that she's actually a terrifying monster before inviting the rest of the community to join her in eating the love-struck soldier. But what does any of this have to do with Love Island? Well, if we imagine that we, as the show's audience, are like Major Ben Darnell, by watching the show we are looking through the window of our TVs at the alternative reality that is Love Island. In Night Visions, the prairie represented a simpler time in American history which Darnell was nostalgic for. Similarly, with its shots of tropical beaches and bikini-wearing singletons, it's easy to fall in the trap of romanticizing Love Island and its overly simplified representations of love and dating. It's only when we travel through the window and take a much closer look at the implications of Love Island that something that may have seemed so idyllic and ultimately harmless from afar becomes a very real threat. And like the woman from A View from the Window, the nightmarish and ugly reality is that it might just consume our own souls. With that in mind, maybe the presenter of Love Island was actually desperately trying to warn us when she said it's going to be a long, hot summer. Thanks so much to Oscar Wallington for writing this beautiful but drastically depressing insight to where the human race is generally descending into. You can follow him on Twitter at Oscar Wallington, where surprisingly he tweets about Disney. So where could a man that loves Hercules with all that Herc merch get such a depressing idea from, I wonder? Thanks for watching that video. Please do like and subscribe. We upload 2 tasty and tenderized videos a week to sink your teeth into, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to follow us at Screen On Point and Tom A. Ransom on Twitter to satisfy my narcissistic need for acceptance and love, and you make sure you have a wonderful day.